Good evening, everyone. We are in our first session of Embark, NET-JRF Free Crash conducted by MSF EFLU Hyderabad. During our previous sessions, we have covered mathematical aptitude, people development and environment, and data interpretation by our beloved faculties of Saif Muhammad and Shabab Sani. And today, our session is going to be ICT and reading comprehension by Mr. Rafid Janathan, our senior research fellow in comparative literature at EFLU University, Hyderabad. I extend my warm welcome to the entire audience and especially our faculty Rafid Janathan. So, sir, please.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so Junaid, can you please share the screen? Okay, yeah, so Junaid will share the slide. So before that, I'll give a brief introduction to what I'm talking today, or like what we kind of cover. So we have two areas. One is ICT and passage comprehension. So we'll start with ICT, and ICT is a very very basic area. Like most of you will be familiar with ICT, and it has an advantage, right? So at least most of us have covered IT related topics in till our 10th standard. We must have had a topic called information technology, and likewise, you might have had other familiarity with IT and other things. So in most of the cases, this familiarity will do, which will help you to crack the question. So you can expect maximum 5 questions from ICT, which comprises of 2 marks. So which will be like 10 marks for ICT. And there are only very few areas which we need to specifically look for uh, in order to score. So also I'll talk about the presentation method. So the class is I don't know how you did in the previous classes, but this time you can try, like we can start with a question. So we'll have in between question times, in between the presentations, and you can give the answers in the chat box, like A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, whichever is the option. So we'll start with a question session in the case of ICT, and then we'll talk a bit from the content part, the theory part, and then we'll come back to questions again. So so that's it. That's kind of a very basic introduction. Junaid, are you able to present it?
Yeah, if there is,
Is it visible now? For me, it is not. So
is the slides is visible?
uh, if anybody else can give feedback, no. Yeah, Soumya says no. Okay, so we'll talk a bit more, like instead of waiting, about ICT. We'll begin with the introduction, and yeah, so mostly we have key, you know, key areas of presentation. I would say in ICT we have a hardware session talking about the parts of computer. As we know, like these are the tangible parts, right? Parts we can touch, parts we can see of the computer. And the other part is software. Okay, software is which doesn't have a tangible part. And the other area is ICT and governance. So these are like three large sections. I think Junaid has a problem from his end, so I'll try to present from my screen.
എടാ ഞാൻ സ്ക്രീൻ ഷെയർ ഓൺ ആണല്ലോ, കാണുന്നില്ല.
Okay, I'll try to send it. Okay, is it visible now?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it is
it's
visible now.
visible.
Okay, then we'll proceed like this. Yeah, sorry about the interruption because my laptop has, I don't know if it will last till the end of presentation, but hopefully we can manage. The battery is kind of low, so yeah. And so this is the first. We started with the basic intro. So as I mentioned, I'm audible, right? The audio is clear, right?
Yes, it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So we'll start with two questions, and one of these questions is kind of difficult. The first one, the second one is very simple. So it's what UGC does. It gives you a mixture of simple and complex questions. So two things you have to take care. Talking in general about NET exam, you should make sure that all the simple questions are answered well, which means you shouldn't make mistakes when it comes to the simple questions. So think of it if you're capable of answering the second question or not. Okay. And the complex question, complicated questions, you might not be able to answer, but you should be able to answer the average difficulty level questions. But if it's too complex, that's okay. You can try to guess and improve. So the aim of your preparation should be, aim like your focus should be on being able to answer all the simple questions and most of the average questions, and also depending on your ability to guess the complicated questions. Okay, so we'll start with the first question. what is the full form of NMEICT? You can give your options 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of A, B, C, D, I have written it as 1, 2, 3, 4. You can also give letters, whichever you prefer. So we have 1 and A, which is basically the same. Any other options? We have B. We have 1B, and no supporters for C and D. Like everyone is. We have more 1, which is A or 1. Okay, so 1 is the correct answer. So congrats for whoever went for 1. And it is a complicated question, especially when compared to other areas that UGC NET usually ask, from this subject field. So, but we can kind of guess it. You can think of it like, for example, the topic is ICT. So the end must be ICT. So we have an ICT there. And National Mission on E-Governance is there, E-Commerce is there, E-Learning is there. So the most simple option here is 1, because E-Governance is, a government project to help the office work, basically, to run the government through ICT. And E-Commerce is the commerce part through ICT, learning through ICT. So education is the correct answer. And the simple question is second one. How many bits are in a byte? This question has, I think, repeated 2-3 times in previous NET papers. So everyone is 2. Is there anyone who thinks that it's 16-bit? Just give your answers, okay? And NET doesn't have any negative score. So assume yourself you're writing the exam and you're just giving an option. So okay, 2 is the correct answer. 1 byte is 2-bit. Okay. But how many bytes make 1 kilobyte, 1 KB? You can turn on your speaker and speak, or like you can just give answers. So we have bits, bytes, kilobytes, megabytes, gigabytes, and terabytes. Yes, correct. The answer it's 1024. Okay, so like only this thing is specific for the relation between bit and byte. All other things, for example, byte is the smallest unit, and then KB, kilobyte. So 1 byte is 1024 kilobyte. Then 1024 kilobytes is 1 MB. Then 1024 megabytes MB is GB, gigabyte. Okay. Then 1024 gigabyte is terabyte, TB. You might be familiar with these terms, so just make sure that you don't make a mistake when you attend the exam. Okay, so as I started, we have 3 key areas: hardware, ICT, and software. Okay, so software that we already discussed this part, and these 2 are basically the key areas: hardware, software, and other basically non-governance parts of ICT. But recently we have questions from governance also, so that is kind of an emerging field in that way. Okay, we'll talk about a few abbreviations, and I have given a list of abbreviations, kind of a long list. So I'll definitely send the PPT with you, share the PPT to your WhatsApp group. So in that you can refer it for later. And like I'll just go through all the important abbreviations. AGP PC, you must know, it's personal computer. Then BIOS is another term. I think one previous question paper had BIOS, basic input and output system. Then HDD, hard disk drive. Now we have SSD and HDD. These are two types of hard disks. And GUI is also important, graphic user interface. GUI is basically what you see when you use the computer, right? The computer program is in binary language. So we'll talk about binary in detail later. So this binary language is presented to us as interactable, graphic interface. So that graphic interface is the GUI. And then there is USB. You shouldn't make a mistake. Universal Serial Board, Visual Graphic Adapter, VGA, not that important. And in this, you should think of WAN and LAN, wide area network and local area network. And these are like two different ways of connecting different computers and making networks. CPU, you should know, central processing system, OS, operating system. DVD is, we have CDs, DVDs. Digital versatile disk is the DVD. And full form of CD is compact disk. Then ROM. ROM again, we'll talk in detail later. Read-only memory. Then VDU, Visual Display Unit. RAM, Random Access Memory. So we have RAM and ROM. ROM is read-only memory. RAM is Random Access Memory. And in this, personal area network, PAN, that you can think of, and IC, integrated circuit. Okay, and WWW, World Wide Web. And among these, you should remember this XML and HTML. XML is extensible markup language and HTML is hypertext markup language. So these are languages that are used to write web pages. HTML you might be familiar with, but think of XML also. And HTTP, hypertext markup language. And IP, we have IP addresses, right? So when we trace computers using IP addresses, IP is Internet Protocol. Yeah, so we have our next question. And among the four, which is not an input device? It's again very simple. It's like, high school level question. Microphone, keyboard, joystick, or monitor. We have 1, 3. Everyone else thinks it's 4. No, anybody for 1 and 2? Okay, all 4 people are correct. It's monitor. Okay, we have 1 person, 2. Okay, so what's the difference? Microphone, usually we give the input, we give the data to computer using a microphone. We give a voice input. Input, basically, we are giving data to computer. So in that microphone, we are giving voice input to computer. In keyboard, again, we are typing in, we are giving input to computer using a keyboard. And joystick might be confusing if you are not familiar with joysticks or what a joystick is. Joystick is a device with which we play games. So joystick is basically the keyboard we use to play games. So it's again an input device. And the only output device here is monitor, because using monitor, computer gives data to us, right? We see things in a display. That means computer gives data to us. It's not like we are giving to computer. So
That is the difference. And the fourth question is select the open source software. So we have open source software and proprietary softwares where we have so people are already answering. One is there, MS Word. It's an average question. It's not very difficult, but no, it's an average question. So there are 3 people who thinks it's Mozilla, 4 people. Anybody for Windows and Acrobat Reader? There was 1 person who thought it's MS Word. 3, 3, 1. B again. Okay, so the answer is Mozilla Firefox. So to begin with, what is the difference between an open source software and a proprietary software? And in an open source software, the source code is open. So you might have heard of this term code, right? All softwares that we use, the games we play, the documents, like the websites we see, all the softwares are working with codes. For example, you might have heard of the job title called coder. So this coder is someone who makes codes that run behind every program. Okay. So let's say there is a software, which is a program, and which works using a code. And if the code is open for everyone, for example, I know that MS Word is a software. Okay, I want to make another software which resemble MS Word, which looks like MS Word, or which does the same function of MS Word. Then I can do like I have to write a code that is similar to MS Word. I have to develop a code that is similar to MS Word. So if the code of MS Word is open, anybody can develop a different software using the same code with differences, of course. For example, the Android that you use, we have different Android versions in your mobile, right? Now it's Android 12 or Android 13. All the times we had Android 6 or 7. So Android is basically the operating system of a mobile phone. Your mobile phone works using this specific code, which is called Android. Android has an open source code, which means anybody in the world can take this code and develop their own OS, their own operating system. That is why we have mobile phones which are cheaper. For example, assume that you buy a laptop. When you buy a laptop, you have to give extra money for an operating system. For example, Windows 11 is free. Before, like Windows 10, we had to pay extra because nobody can develop another software like Windows using the code of Windows. So the basic point that we're talking about is, if the code is open, anybody can go use that code and make another software. In the case of Mozilla's code that works behind the software that works behind Mozilla is open. So I can go take the code, see the code, and develop another browser which looks like Mozilla. And Mozilla is the only open source software here. MS Word is a documenting software with which we edit and make documents. Basically a document processing software. And Windows is an operating system. An operating system is something that runs a system. For example, our laptops usually run with an operating system called Windows. Can anybody give an example of an open source operating system?
Linux.
In schools and all, you might have come across open source operating systems.
Linux, Ubuntu, Android.
Okay. Ubuntu is an open source operating system. Linux is also an open source operating system. So we have multiple open source operating systems. Yeah, Android is also an example. And Mozilla Firefox is a browser. We have, can anybody give examples of or other browsers? LibreOffice is not a browser. LibreOffice is also not a software, not an OS. Yeah, Google Chrome is an OS. So LibreOffice is, because somebody has given the example of LibreOffice. LibreOffice is a document processing software, just like MS Word. So you can use LibreOffice instead of MS Word. And we have Acrobat Reader, Yahoo. Yes, LibreOffice is an open source application. Yeah, Hasna is saying something.
Opera Mini.
Yeah, Opera Mini is an open source browser. DuckDuckGo also has a browser. In the case of DuckDuckGo, DuckDuckGo is a search engine as well as a browser. And Yahoo is a search engine. Basically, Yahoo also provides email services. And Firefox is a browser. Yes. LibreOffice is an open source application. It's an open source alternative for MS Word. So it does the same job as MS Word from an open source end, but the code is open. So that's the point. Okay. So we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. So these are terminologies. We have a few terms related to ICT. One is BIOS. Basic input and output system that handles the computer. You might have seen the BIOS when you turn on the computer. The computer will ask you, you can go to the BIOS menus. Right, so if you click usually F2 or F12, we have different keys that lead us to the BIOS menu. So BIOS menu is like when you start the computer, you see letters in black color, right? Like black and white screen with nothing else, or blue and white, depending on the nature of the BIOS. So that is the BIOS screen. Then you can go to the BIOS menu and make changes in the computer. So BIOS is the basic system that every computer has. Okay, so the basic input and output system that handles the computer. It informs us about the functions to be conducted on the system. The instructions are implemented on a chip connected to the motherboard. So basically, every computer comes with the BIOS, and then the OS. Like for example, you can install Windows or you can install Linux, but the BIOS is already there. Usually, operating systems like Windows or Linux will edit the BIOS also, but you should have a BIOS to install it. Okay. Then byte is the storage unit. CPU is the brain of the computer, as you might know. It's a central processing unit. And what is Mac? Because we haven't talked about Mac yet. If you're familiar with Apple computers, the operating system that is used is Mac OS. Okay, and okay, then there is a short form WYSIYG. It's related to printing, not that important. Okay, OS we already talked about, and PC also we mentioned, and PDF. So you read files in PDF format, right? So when the file is kept in the portable document format, we say it is a PDF. Okay, and RAM, the space that can be used only one time, is called random access memory. So there are like two different types of memories. One is RAM and the other one is ROM. Okay, ROM you cannot change, but RAM is only one time. For example, when you open a service, suppose you start playing a game, okay, then that game uses the RAM memory when it plays. In order to play the game, you have to use the RAM memory of the computer. But the same game is stored in your hard disk. Right? In order to play the game, you have to have the game files in your computer. So those files are stored in ROM, that is the read-only memory. Okay, so that is the simple definition with the difference. And then there is VGA, that is video graphics array. So it's related to the graphics memory. Okay, now we have the next question. Among the option which enables us to send the same letter to different persons in MS Office. Mail merge, mail join, mail copy, mail insert. Is everyone going for mail merge? Is it mail join? You can also join, right? Okay, so everyone is going for the right answer. It is mail merge. So when it comes to emails, we have a few ideas. For example, you might have heard of CC, carbon copy. What is a carbon copy? Can anybody explain? You can turn on your microphone and speak.
Duplicate.
Yeah, so there is CC, carbon copy, and BCC, blind carbon copy. So what is the difference between BCC and CC? Anybody? Copy with print. No. So I can send a mail in CC, which basically means I am sending the same mail to different people. Okay, which is a carbon copy, the same copy of mail to different people. But if I am sending it as CC, the receiver, for example, I am sending mails to Junaid. Okay, and Junaid can see that I have sent mails to him. So I am sending to Junaid and Sumaya. So if I'm sending it as CC, both Sumaya and Junaid can see that I have sent mails to two people and the other person is Junaid. Okay. But if I'm sending it as BCC, as a blind carbon copy, then they cannot see that I have sent mails to others also. So it's a blind copy. So Sumaya cannot know that I have sent the same mail to Junaid as well. Okay. Is that clear? And now we have a definition. It's kind of a depiction or a description, and you have to tell what it is. Okay. Choose the correct reference for the study, design, development, implementation, support, or management of computer-based information systems, particularly software applications and computer hardware. Okay. So it's a description. It's a very long description. So recent question papers of NET exam has this tendency to give you very long passages as questions. So if you don't have much interest in getting JRF, you'll be very bored. I mean, you won't even try to read the longer question. You just leave it because it's long. So instead, you better sit and focus on the question and try to read it. Okay. So now, though it is long, you just sit and read it carefully. It's a simple question. And we have many people who are giving it A. This one. Study, design, development, implementation, support, or management. Anybody else? Just read, give it a read and see what it is. So nobody thinks it's ICT. Is it IT or ICT? Or artificial intelligence? You might be familiar with the term now. ChatGPT, AI. Yes, what you have given is the correct answer. So I think you people are like generally well prepared for ICT already. Anyway, so this one is information technology. Okay, it involves the study, design, development, implementation, support, and management based on information system, particularly software application hardware. So here it doesn't really talk about uh, the implementation of IT to other fields. Okay, so the definition changes or the description changes when we apply IT to other forms. Okay, and yeah, this one is the basic difference: search engine and web browser. So what is a search engine? We have already defined. A search engine, like by operating the search engine, is a software program that searches the website based on the keywords which the user types in. Give an example of a search engine. You can type in chat box.
Google.
Yeah, Google is an example of a search engine. Chrome is not a search engine, so that can be a confusion. Chrome is a web browser. Okay, you can search different kind of information on the internet by operating the search engine. Safari also has both search engine and a browser. So certain things, certain software, certain web browsers also have their own search engine. For example, DuckDuckGo is an example. Yeah, Bing is a search engine. Bing is developed by which company? Bing is a part of a popular franchise or a company. Yeah, Bing is a part of Microsoft. Okay, so the difference is web browser is the software that you use. Okay, web browser is the icon that you see outside. Okay, you see the icon of a Chrome, you see the icon of Firefox, you see the icon of Edge. So that thing is the browser. And whenever you open the browser and go inside and you start searching for an information, then you are entering a browser. Then you are entering a search engine. You are searching in Google. Then you're searching in DuckDuckGo, you're searching in Bing. So likewise, you're searching in different web browsers, search engines. And here we have the input devices and output devices. The input devices is one example is keyboard, mouse, joystick, light pen, trackball, scanner. So among these, trackball is an equivalent of a mouse that we used to have in old times. When we started making computers, we used to have trackballs. And scanner, you might be familiar. You used to scan documents. And graphic tablet. So it's not the tablet that we know. Okay, it is the tablet where we try to draw and give inputs inside. Microphone is an input device, and MICR and OCR. So MICR and OCR are two, readers basically. If you're familiar, are you familiar with OCR? Yeah, to take a very simple example, nowadays we have Google Lens, right? So if you're using Google Lens, you have a text option. So for example, you have an assignment and you have to copy the answer from a book, from a printed book, right? You don't have a PDF of that book. So in order to copy the text, you have to see the text in Google Lens and scan it, and then copy the text, right? So Google Lens show the printed text as copyable text, right? as the text that you can take and copy and paste into another place. Then what is happening is that the software called Google Lens is recognizing the characters in the text. So before Google Lens, we still use OCRs and MICRs. We have these readers, which were basically character recognition tools, which helped us to recognize the characters in a printed book or a printed surface or wherever. And then we have barcode readers. So just be careful of these options. Okay, this might confuse you because you might not be familiar with a barcode reader or OCR or MICR. So these are input devices. And we have optical mark reader, OMR. Suppose you like before the digitalization of NET exam, when I gave my first NET exam, it was OCR exam. So I had to go and bubble the the columns. So we used to give these circles. I have to bubble the A circle or B circle or C circle. So that is the answer. And in order to read these bubbles, they had to use an OMR reader. So OMR is not the name of the answer sheet. It's not the name of the exam. It is basically the name of the reader, the device. Okay, and that's how we have this. Then we call the exams as OMR based exams because we use the device called OMR. And the output devices, we have monitor or a display screen, that is an output device. We have printers and speakers, headphones, projector, might be familiar with. In the interactive classrooms, we use projectors. And plotter, that's another output device. Braille reader, also you might be familiar. Like in the case of Braille readers, the computer changes the text, okay, the electronic text, in the form where visually challenged people can read it. Okay, and yeah, I have given like total 4 points related to the output and input. We have already discussed. Input devices are used to provide data and control signals to an information processing system like a computer. So basically, input devices give data to a computer or to any other devices that like computer. And output devices are used to extract or retrieve data from the computer. So the computer gives data to the user in the case of output. In the case of input, the user gives data to the computer. But the definition won't help much if you don't know what the device is. And if you know about the device, it's very easy to determine if it's input or output. And NET used to have questions related to input and output devices. So just be careful about that part. And data flows in the case of input device, data flows from device to the computer. Data flows from the computer to the device. So in the case, the device they're talking about, the input device or the output device. So you can like replace the device with the user. Okay. So the first question is kind of difficult, but if anybody has an answer, please give. And others who don't know the answer, just give a guess. We'll talk in detail about this changing decimal to binary to decimal and decimal to binary. What is the binary equivalent of the decimal number? 51. Anybody give your answers? Or just give a guess, whichever. And the first thing about NET exam or paper 1 is that you should be courageous enough to guess. Okay, so you should have the courage to guess because there is no negative mark. You can just guess and score. So we have one person who gave 1 and another person 3. Anybody else? A. Anybody? Yes, A is the correct answer. Exactly. So I'll show you the method of this change, half from decimal to binary and binary to decimal. Before that, we'll go to the next question. How do you describe copying files to a CD-ROM? Is it burning, zipping, digitalizing, or ripping? And this one is a typical NET question. So if you are someone who is confused, okay, who doesn't know the question, first you answer, then we'll talk. Is it burning, zipping, digitalizing, or ripping? We have 2 A's or 2 1's, and we have 1 person for ripping. Anybody else? Anybody for zipping and digitizing? Yes, we have 1 zipping. No, digitizing doesn't have anyone. So, anybody? We have more burning. Okay. Yeah. So, this one is a classic case of a NET question, right? So, I'll explain. So, if you're familiar with this method of kind of removing wrong answers and reaching to the right answer. For example, there are different methods. It's for all answers, okay? It's for both paper 1 and paper 2. When you write the NET exam, so it's a method of elimination. So you can remove wrong answers and find the right answer. So if you have a question that is confusing, so if you know the answer, you don't have to go for elimination. You just go answer it. But if you are confused, the first thing you have to do is to eliminate the wrong answers. Here, ripping is not a term that is related to ICT, okay, related to information technology, wherever you use. So you can easily remove it if you have some familiarity with ICT. Then zipping you might have heard somewhere, and digitizing also you might have somewhere. Okay, but digitizing is a larger process where you keep things in digital format. Okay, so you can remove the third option also. So we are talking about the process of elimination, where you eliminate option. First, we have eliminated ripping, the least, which has the least possibility of being an answer. Then we can remove digitizing, which is the second least option. Now, you see that always have at least 2 confusing options. If the question is difficult enough, they'll have 2 confusing options. And zipping, you might have heard it's related to the process of, it's somewhere you might have you remember related to IT or ICT. And zipping and burning are the 2 options. In that case, you can think of zipping as, is a process where you combine files, right? So we have zip file. A zip file is different from a normal file because in the zip file you compress documents. For example, you have a folder of photos, a photo folder, which is 1 GB. And when you compress the photo folder, it might go like 800 MB. So what you have done is you have compressed the folder. You have zipped the folder, and now you have a zip folder of photos, which has 800 MB, which has less size. And in order to make a zip file to a normal file, you do the process of extraction. To do the extraction, you can use a software, or Windows also has, or even if it's Ubuntu, it has an extraction software. And then you can remove zipping also, or you can think of if you're familiar with zip file, then it's something related to a file. It's not a CD-ROM thing. You can remove that also. Then burning becomes the correct answer. So I'm just explaining the process of elimination. You don't have to go through this longer process if you're familiar with the answer. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the process of making converting a binary, a decimal to binary. So first of all, a decimal is the normal number that we use. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is decimal. And the binary number is the language of the computer, which knows only about zeros and ones. Okay. So to change from a decimal to a binary, as it is explained in the picture, uh, first you have to uh, draw a symbol like this. It is the opposite of the division symbol. Like to divide, you use the symbol something like just in the opposite direction, right? So for example, now we have 156, and you always divide the number by 2. Okay, so it is 156 by 2, and 156 by 2 is 78, and which means you don't have any. For example, it's exactly 78. You don't have a 1 left. So 2 into 78 is 156. Okay, so 156 by 2 is 78, and you have a remainder of 0. There is nothing remains there. Then you write a 0. And then there is 78. Again you divide. So you always divide by 2. The only thing you have to do is divide by 2 and write the remainder. Okay, 78 by 2, 39. Again you have no remainder, that is 0. And then we have 39. So 39 by 2 is 19, but you have one remainder because 19 into 2 is not 39, it is 38. So there is a difference, 1. So 1 is the remainder, then you write 1 there, and then 19. 19 by 2 is actually 8, right? So sorry, 9. Then you write 9, but 9 into 2 is again 18, not 19. So there is a remainder of 1. Then you write the remainder. Then 9 by 2 is 4 with a remainder of 1. Okay, but 4 by 2 is 0. 2 by 2 is 0. And finally, we have 2 by 2 is 1. And there is 1 at the end. Okay, so just focus on that part because there is a chance you get that part wrong. So 4 by 2 is equal to 2. You write the 2 under the 4, and then 2 by 2 is again with 0 remainder. We have to then there is a remainder of 1. So you just write the remainder as 1 there, and the final remainder, which is 1, that is also a part of the answer. Okay, and the answer, you have to write the answer from the last digit to first. For example, in this case, the answer starts with 1. Okay, the answer here is 100, 111, and 00. And I hope this method is clear for you. If not, I'll definitely send you the links of how to solve this, and you can find the solution there. I think and because we don't have much time, I'll just proceed to the next conversion method, which is a conversion from binary to decimal. So this one is slightly more complicated than the previous one. If you don't like maths, it's okay. You can just like take your time and think if you can figure out a way around this, because this conversion, binary to decimal and decimal to binary, was repeated question in NET exam. So that's why we have to focus on this part. And yeah, so in order to change from binary to decimal again, first you write the binary number. Here your task is to convert the binary number, that is 10011011, to a decimal number, to its decimal number. Okay, now what you have to write is, you have to start by writing the 2's, and like 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 3, 2 raised to 3, like that. From you write from right to left. Okay, that thing you shouldn't make a mistake. So basically all mathematical problems in general, when it comes to the first paper, you should practice it. Okay, not just by looking at the slide or watching a YouTube video or reading a website. You cannot answer mathematics question, you cannot answer logical reasoning, you cannot answer syllogism. You have to practice it. So here also you have to practice. I'm just explaining how it works. From right to left, you write as 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, till 2 raised to 7. Okay, and then you write the answer. 2 raised to 0, 1, 2 raised to 1, 2. You write whatever it is. 2 raised to 2 is 4, 2 raised to 3 is 8, and likewise you write. And the next step, you simply write all these in above the binary. Okay, so you write the sums, the results above the binary. And for example, in the case of 1, you have 1 just under 1, right? Okay, then you write 1. And in the case of 2, you have 1 under 2, then you write 2. But in the case of 4, you have a 0 under 4, so you write 0. So wherever there is 0, the 0 will make a 0. Okay, 8 has 1, so it's 8. 16 has 1, so it's 16. 32 has 0, so it is 0. 64 has 0, so it is 0. 128 has 1, so it is 128. Then you add all these. 128 plus 0 plus 0 plus 16 plus 8 plus 0 plus 2 plus 1 is the answer. That is 155. This also I'll send you the detailed link. So don't worry about, if you didn't get this fully right now. That's okay. Okay. Now it's back to our question time. Okay. Then the statement, just you have to define, there's a definition. You have to identify what it is. An unsolicited email message sent to many recipients at once. Is it a worm? Is it a virus? Is it a threat? Is it a spam? Anybody else? One person says it's spam, but it can also be a threat, right? Or is it a virus? The keyword here is email. It's an email. Okay. So everyone agrees that it's a spam. That is true. A worm is a form of virus. Virus is a virus, A threat is something that doesn't belong here, because a threat is not a term that belongs to information technology. So you don't have a specific, a category called threat. You can say there is a threat because of a virus. There is a threat because of a spam. Otherwise, that is not an option. And a spam is basically almost all messages that you get in your email. You might be familiar with the emails that you get from Swiggy, the emails you get from Flipkart, and mostly if it's advertisements, you can call it a spam. Or if there is someone who just sends you messages or sends everyone random messages, that's a spam. Okay, choose the correct option, which describes the statement. A type of memory circuit that holds the computer's startup routine. So, memory circuit. It also helps the computer's startup routine. This question is kind of complicated. Anybody else? Is it RAM or a RIM or ROM? There is one person who says it's C. Anybody else who thinks it's C? There is anybody else? Because C is the correct answer. Okay. And there was someone who said it is a RIM. RIM is purely an imaginative invention by NTA. Only NTA knows what it is. There is no term as read initial memory when it comes to ICT at least. So the other two options are RAM and ROM. And cache is not really a static note in memory. Cache is related to softwares where they leave, memories of traces of their works. And in this, ROM is the correct answer, which is C or 3. Okay, because RAM, as you said, as you already described, only starts when we start an application. So it doesn't. It is not related to the a computer's startup routine. Startup routine basically means when you turn on a computer, it kind of starts up from a certain, using a certain memory. So then the only option, if it is not RAM, then the option is ROM. And you have to be careful of about these imaginative solutions, because NTA is very good at inventing, nice looking options which are very tricky. So yeah, so that's it about ICT. We'll take some more time for comprehension. Before that, anybody has any questions, any clarifications? Just please turn on your mic and speak, or put in the chat box quickly. Okay, otherwise we'll quickly move on to the reading comprehension. And reading comprehension, again, as we discussed, is a key part. Okay, so you can expect at least 2 passages, which will come around 10 to 15 points, depending on, if NTA likes more comprehension. So yes, somebody turned on their mic. Is there any question? Okay, we'll proceed. I'll try to present my screen. Passage comprehension, is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, right? Yeah. So reading comprehension, the first thing is you might have some techniques of yours which you have developed throughout, because we started reading comprehension from 3rd standard, 4th standard, from the very beginning. So you might have your own way of reading a passage. But this when you prepare for NT/NET, the only thing, or perhaps the first thing, is you should know what you're doing when you read a passage. So you should be mindful, you should be careful when you try to solve a passage question, basically about your own way of doing it. Yeah, so before all that, when you prepare for NTA NET exam, the best way to start preparation is to start from question papers. Okay, so we'll start from previous question papers and see, how all those questions look. So just take random question papers and try answering. For example, you can say, I'll solve 30 questions from previous question papers today. Okay, so you begin the day with sitting with an old question paper, and you read the question paper, and you try to solve it. Okay, so you begin your preparation with questions. Then you know that you have certain problems. Then you know that there is a particular problem that you cannot really solve. Then you know that you are good at maths, but you're not really good at comprehension. Or you are good at comprehension, you're good at reading, but you're not that good at syllogism. So whichever way, start with question paper. And that's the first thing. Okay. Now you have to, so whenever you sit with a question paper, Assume that you are answering the question paper as if you are writing an NT exam. Okay, assume that you are in the examination hall, and give yourself maximum 1.5 minutes for one question paper. For example, if you are taking 30 questions, you can give yourself 45 minutes, right? So you say that you have to solve all these questions within 45 minutes and sit and start answering. So the first time when you try to when you encounter a question paper, when you see an old question paper, what you're trying to do is like you're trying to answer it as if you're seeing it in the exam paper. Okay, now you have an answer. Then now you know which parts were difficult, what you know, what you don't know, and then you can check about the solution. For example, you did 10 comprehension questions Monday morning. You sat and you did 10 comprehension questions using 15 minutes. And now the idea is to refer the answers. You can see the answers if you're correct or not. Also, there are YouTube channels which give detailed solutions. They'll show you how to solve the question paper. So using their method, you can see how to approach a question paper, how to see a question, and how to solve the question paper. So if you're trying to do that, that's good, and you can proceed, and you will know what is wrong with you, your preparation, and proceed. Okay, and I usually talk about this 3R method: read, record, and review. So basically, you start with reading, and with reading, you should also be conscious of what you are reading. So that's the recording part, and also there comes this review. So there used to be questions like, what is the passage about, or what is the theme of the passage? So those, to answer those questions, you might need this review part. And there are questions like, for example, statistics. For example, let's say it's a passage about the GDP of India, India's gross domestic production. And there is a statistic like India's GDP has increased 1.5% in 5 years. So that's the statistics, right? And if the question paper asks what is the increment in GDP, then that part has to be answered from the recording part. So recording becomes important there. And yeah, so this is also very broadly different ideas. One is the scope of the passage, and the other thing is like NT-NET has this tendency to give passages that are not related to your areas. For example, let's say you are a history student. You might get passages from literature. Okay, you might be a literature student. You will get passages from social science or sciences. So the basic idea, even if you don't like the passage, you have to read it because you're writing an exam. Okay, like for example, if a literature student gets a point, she or he might be happy with it. But even if you don't like science, even if you don't like statistics, even if you don't like social science articles, you have to read it because you are writing an exam. So despite your likes and dislikes, you have to do it. And the other part, there are two methods, which is Q to P or P to Q, which we call it in short. You're either going from question to passage, Q to P, or P to Q, which is passage from passage to question. So these are two methods. Depending on whichever you are convenient, you can proceed. It's recommended to begin from the question and then read the passage. Okay, and there are different types of questions as well. So one is about the larger part of the passage that we already discussed. The other things are very simple questions that you can spot in the passage and answer. The other ones are indirect questions. So you have to have an understanding of the passage and answer, and try to have a general idea of what the passage is about. And yeah, so these are few questions. I'll copy paste the passage here. So I think Google Meet has this limit for text, but then let's see. So I'll paste the passage as different messages. So I'm doing this because you can see it simultaneously, both the passage and the questions. Okay, so if I'm presenting the passage and the question, you'll have to kind of come back from questions to passage. So instead, you can see both. So here we have today China appears to be capital. So you can just start reading it. Welcome to India, Singapore. Yes, I hope you are reading the passage already. So you can take around like 5 minutes to read the passage and 2-3 minutes to answer the questions. Also for the first paper, you'll have enough time because nowadays, now it's combined, right? First paper and second paper. So you don't have to worry about the lack of time. So you can take the time of your second paper as well if your second paper doesn't take much time. So I think it's already 2-3 minutes. So just read the parts, like read the messages as a continuation of a whole big thing. Because Google Meet has word limits for the text message. Yeah, I think we have the whole passage. It's readable, right? I mean, if anybody can give a feedback. Yes. How much time you need? It's 8:48 already. Like in 2 minutes, can we, like, will you finish reading in 2-3 minutes? We can start answering the questions like 850, 51. Yeah, I'll also give you the questions. So these are the first two questions, which you already might have read. So in our Q to P method, from question to passage method, you begin by reading the questions. Okay. So whichever you prefer, you can do here. These are two questions. And these are the, oh my, it's repetition. Yeah. So these are the next two questions. And I'll show the, yeah, the last question, the last two questions. Oh, it's clear. Yes. Just let me know once you finish reading. It's already 8:50. So if you are someone who doesn't like non-fiction articles, and also this one is an article to hate. So, but when it appears in a NET exam, you have to answer. Okay, so let's start, right? So the first question is a simple, direct question. Which country enjoyed competitive advantages in automobile industry for decades? Is it South Korea, Japan, Mexico, or Malaysia? Just give 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we have one Japan. No Korean fans. Yeah, everyone is going for Japan. And that is the correct answer. So in the passage it says, in terms of labor for decades, the relatively low cost and high quality of Japanese workers conferred considerable competitive advantage. Okay, for decades, advantage. So you have the answer. And why, the next question, why labor-based competitive advantages of India and Singapore cannot be sustained in IT and service sectors? Answers to like answer for this question. Is it diminishing levels of skills because Indians don't have skill, or is it capital intensive technology, new competitors, shifting of levels? Just give an answer. It can be a pure guess. That's also fine. Yeah, we have many new competitors, and there is 1% for 4. Nobody for diminishing skills. Yes, the correct answer is 3, new competitors, because it clearly says, however, as educational levels and technical skills continue to rise in other countries, India, Singapore, and like nations enjoying labor-based competitive advantages today are likely to find such advantages cannot be sustained through emergence of new competitors. So these are like very direct questions. Yeah, how can an organization enjoy competitive advantages sustainable over time? Through regional capital flows, through regional interactions among business players, by making large banks, industries and market cost, by effective use of various instruments. Give your answers. 3 or 4. Anybody? Is it 3 or 4 or 2? It's an indirect question, so it might be difficult. There are 2 answers. One is 2 and 2 or 3. Okay, because there is this instrumentalist is the difficult term which you might not find in the passage. So for these questions, you might know what's happening in the passage. You should understand the passage. And there will be only like 1 or 2 such questions. So at least you can answer 3 from the passage without much effort. So if you're prepared enough. So yeah, you don't have to worry about difficult questions from the passage. 2 or 3. Okay, but the correct answer is 4, as someone has already mentioned, by effective use of various instrumentalists. So in the passage it says that, only if an organization is able to combine, integrate, and apply its resources in an effective manner that is not readily imitable by competitors, can such organization enjoy competitive advantage sustainable over time. So in order to enjoy the competitive advantages, a company has to do like something that is explained as a passage. Here you can follow the elimination method that we discussed. So this part doesn't talk anything about bank. So bank is out, and it doesn't talk anything about other business players. So that's also out. And regional capital flow, it doesn't also talk about anything about the regional capital. So the answer here is after elimination, you can reach the answer of instrumentalist. So basically, this combination of resources in an effective manner, which is not imitable by other competitors, that is, termed here as instrumentalist. Okay. The next one, it's a direct question. What is required to ensure competitive advantage in specific markets? Is it access to capital? Is it common office building? Is it superior knowledge? Or is it common metal? It's even you can guess this. So, and another important thing, even if you are someone familiar with the idea mentioned in the passage and you know the answer, don't answer without reading the passage. Okay, suppose you are an economics student and you know what is all these things, you know about all these things, but you should answer from the passage, not from your experience, because there can be passages which give wrong information. Then you have to answer according to the wrong information as well. So whatever the passage says is your answer, not what you know. Okay. So access to capital, common office building, superior knowledge, common method. We have one person who gave A, access to
Superior
capital.
knowledge.
Yeah, can you repeat?
Superior knowledge.
Superior knowledge, yeah. Anybody else? That's a very direct question. So the answer is superior knowledge, because the passage says an organization with superior knowledge can achieve competitive advantage in market. Okay, that's again a direct question. So as I said, most of the questions will be direct. And if you know how to answer a passage comprehension, it's definitely 10 points for yourself, like 10 points, like 10 marks. And the passage also mentions about the trend of global financial flow or absence of competition, regionalization of capitals, organizational incompatibility.
Absence of competition in manufacturing industry.
Okay, absence of competition. Anybody else? One and three are given as answers to this. There is anybody global financial flow or regionalization of capital? And anybody for the fourth option, organizational incompatibility? Okay, the answer is global financial flow, and it's an indirect question because as we already mentioned, there will be questions that are asked in general. So what is the topic? What is the theme? What is the key idea? So what is the idea that is mentioned in the passage? So the passage also talks about global financial flow. Okay, apart from all the talk about the competition and sustainable like growth and all. Okay, so the next question, what is the author less stress? Okay, can you repeat, Hasna?
No, sir.
Okay. What does the author lay stress on in the passage? International commerce. It's also an indirect question. Labor-intensive industries, capital resource management, knowledge-driven competitive advantage. So this passage is, I would say, like an above average difficulty. So we have 3 indirect questions. So depending on the nature of passage, you can expect, the ratio of indirect and direct may change. But if there are 2 passages, at least in one passage, you'll have 3 direct ones. So you don't have to be worried about reading the passage. So at least read, try to answer. So you can answer the direct ones definitely and score for that. So what does the author lay stress on the passage? Is it international commerce, labor-intensive industries, capital resource management? Okay, so we have people who answered for international commerce and labor-intensive industries. Nobody for 3 and 4. One, and I think I'll give you like 1 more minute to answer. Nobody for 4. It's a last call for 4. Okay, the correct answer is 4. And this one is the only question where nobody gave a correct answer. But it's a difficult question, I agree. And it's about knowledge-driven competitive advantage. And the idea is that the other things are general, like the passage that author talks about international commerce. That's a very general idea. And labor-intensive industry is also a general idea. Capital resource management is also a very general idea. Then when you say the author stresses on a specific aspect, that stress has to be in a way very specific. So that way we can raise the fourth option, knowledge-driven competitive advantage. And we already discussed about the superior knowledge advantage in another question. So time is up. It's 9. And thank you all for listening. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please do.
If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, so if none has any questions, let's wind up the session. I'd like to take this opportunity to appreciate the enlightening session delivered by our faculty, Master Rafik Chanadan, and I appreciate each and every one of you who gracing this session with your presence. So thank you all.
Thank you all.